Oh, yeah. That's heavy.
Yeah.
It's a job done, thankfully.
Yeah. I've got one about that size. It's 93 or so it is. I stayed small, so I didn't have to use the depth and all the other stuff.
Yeah, mine's old enough that I don't have to do that. Yeah, so mine's a pre-dev.
Yeah.
I'm thankful for also.
That was prior to 2011, so you got what, a 2009?
I think mine's an 8. I think mine's a 2008, yeah.
Because of the depth, you can probably sell it as much as what you paid for it then. Nobody wants to deal with that.
All right, I call to order the Hood Central Appraisal District Board of Directors meeting located at 1902 West Pearl Street, Granbury, Texas, 7648. Notice hereby given that on January 23rd, 2025, the Board of Directors of Hood Central Appraisal District will meet in open session for a call meeting beginning at 5 p.m. at 1902 West Pearl Street, Granbury, Texas. The public is welcome to address the Board of Directors during the public comment period under Agenda Item 3 regarding any item on the agenda listed on the agenda for consideration and action, or any other issue under the Board's jurisdiction. During the public's comment period, the chairman will allow each speaker 3 minutes in which to speak. The board may not respond to comments regarding the items not on the agenda. So, call to order, Board of Directors. All members are present, and that's it. So we'll move on to number 3, organization and election of officers. So, Mr. Law, can you give us some type of guidance?
Yes, the property tax code requires that the appraisal district board of directors annually reorganizes itself. Even though y'all are in your second year of the 2 terms, we have to reorganize, which basically means we'll take nominations of who would serve as the chair and take nominations of who will serve as the secretary.
Okay.
And you can, I'll defer to Braden if I say this wrong. I think you could, if one person wants to make a motion for chair and secretary, they can make sure the same motion.
As long as the voting is going to be consistent. If it's not, we would do 2 separate votes.
Okay. So with that, I turn it back over to you guys.
All right, any discussion? No discussion. Well, I just want to let y'all know that I'm trying to transition from the chairman. I've taken on some additional responsibilities with some different organizations, so I'm not opposed to being nominated as the chair again, but I am trying to transition so that way I can concentrate on those other organizations. So, anybody else have any input?
You good with secretary still?
I'm fine to be the secretary, yes. Anybody want to take the chair position? Or have any interest in being the chairman?
I haven't been here long enough yet, Rick, would you?
I've got 9 months, 10 months to serve or whatever. I think I'll just try to go along and get along. So.
Okay. Mark?
I've been here the same amount of time as Scott, so I don't feel like I'm in a position to be able to do it yet.
Okay. So now I'll take nominations for the floor.
Looks like we're gonna nominate Eddie.
We got a nomination. Any objections?
As chair.
As chair.
Okay.
As chair. Correct.
All right, I have a nomination by Scott. Do I have a second?
Second?
All right, I got a second. All in favor? Say aye. Aye. All right. Now let's move on to secretary. Any nominations on the floor?
Nominate Rod Lipke.
All right.
Second?
Nomination by Scott, a second by Rick. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, say nay. All right, you're it. Congratulations. We'll move on to item number 4, recognize visitors and hear public comments. Joe Simmons, would you like to speak?
Sure.
All right, you got 3 minutes. Come on up if you want to stand or sit or whatever you want to do.
Would you like me to pull a chair around?
No, you can just stand right there or right in front. Or just,
It's like when you go to a restaurant and
and have a terrible meal, the first thing you wanna do is call and complain. Well, I'm not here to complain, I'm here to say that, I had done that in the past, it was several years ago. Eddie was on the board, Rick was on the board, you other three gentlemen, I don't think were on the board. But the appraisal district was in shambles, it was impossible to get a fair hearing, it was impossible to get something done. And yet now, with the hiring of Jeff, who I've known for
25 years.
25 years, he used to work with my father, who was a property tax agent, my grandfather was a property tax agent, my brothers are property tax agents, they both retired. And my nephew is now with our firm as well, so he's taken off and he's working a lot harder than I wanna work, but, it's great to have Eric join us as well. I swear, his mother lives out in rural Texas, and our ranch is in Old Glorious, where my mother was born and raised, little town in the middle of nowhere. And I guarantee you, we're gonna find out we're cousins somewhere down the road. That's a small community, but, Jeff said something to me, we had an informal meeting the other day, there were a couple, my client still calls me every morning since that happened, and said, I can't believe that happened. Cause we normally don't get that kind of response from a chief appraiser and or an appraiser. It was very combative, it is not now. It was awful to be here, it's not now. I don't know what the ARB is gonna be like this year, I know they're probably the same board members, but I'm hoping that, and Eric and I have talked a lot about it, we worked together for 20-something years in Tarrant County with thousands and thousands of properties. We're not a small agency, we have a lot of properties, and I represent probably more properties here in Hood County than any other property tax agent, so. We're excited about it, and I just wanna commend the board, number one, for this amazing hire. Jeff's a great guy, stand-up guy, he did the right thing for two of my good friends and two of my clients, and I really appreciate it, cause in the past it wouldn't happen, but the thing that he said that I won't forget, nor will my client, cause he calls me every day to remind me of it, I can't believe what Jeff said, and he said this, our first response is gonna be yes. Yes. Now, that means a lot being in my business. I mean, wow, they're gonna look at it, they're gonna consider, they're gonna maybe think about changing a value. Whereas in the past, and I don't wanna go back to the past, it was no, it was combative. I witnessed two appraisers absolutely laugh about running an 84-year-old widow into the ground when she came with a closing statement on a property she purchased. They sustained, the board sustained the value. It made me so upset I couldn't see straight. And I know good and well that's not gonna happen now with Jeff or with Eric. You know, I think the staff's been trained up, and so, way to go. Thank y'all for hearing me out for it. So, I appreciate it. Jeff, thank you. See y'all.
Lou Ann, do you have any comments?
No, thank you, I'm just observing.
Richard?
No, thank you, sir.
All right. Jim?
I do, I just, as you know, we talked about the forensic audit you have on the agenda tonight, and we talked about the auditors. I really would like to have the auditors come and explain what appear to be errors, there's some errors, obvious errors, in the thing, not about the numbers. And then there are numbers in the audits itself that, just don't make sense. The depreciated, non-value depreciation that got wiped off, you wrote off $200-something thousand. What was it for? Nobody could answer that, and I appreciate that. That's why I want the auditors to come and answer that. The $290,000 that was budgeted in '23 is capital and capital outlay, but was reported in '23. No capital on capital outlays on the financial audit report, only engineering expenses. What are the engineering expenses? You're not building a building. What are they? It couldn't be answered. And then, again, need the auditors to answer that. All that does is make me a little more enthusiastic about you guys getting a forensic audit, which I don't understand the pushback since not a one of you were here in 2021 when this stuff started. And I don't, it's, you know, that gets cleared up. And I appreciate both you guys do that tonight. I think it's good hearing what, the young man said over here. Thank you.
Jim Brown.
I'm working on it. I guess I'm out of time. Sorry, I had to drive in from Dallas.
You got 3 minutes, sir.
I'm on it. I watched the meeting Tuesday. I did not see one little answer I'm still confused about, is that when the monies were made, based on what I'm hearing, when the monies were paid for the retirement plan, were in fact the employee portions paid? It just seems like there was so much money thrown into, well, I won't say thrown because that implies something, so much money put into the retirement program over a very short, compressed number of years, that there's just a lot of big dollars sitting in there. And I know the other side of my statement is it would seem that a lot of this stuff happened in the past. Maybe it was shaky. Maybe there was some weird dealings going on back then that I'm hearing, and just, I guess like our mayor just said, this gentleman that just spoke, that things obviously seem to be getting better. Well, that's great, but I think it just needs to be said, at least from a concerned citizen's perspective. I would like concerned citizens to be more and more involved in these board meetings. I would guess you would appreciate that. When do we need to start getting more active with the new budget coming on next year, so that what's happening, I heard Mr. Rodriguez say the statement that where were we back then when this stuff was, where was our questions back then? Why are we in such a rage now type of attitude? And maybe that wasn't the attitude, but the point being is that I think we need to get more concerned and more involved in these board meetings, I guess, not to hold you accountable, but just to make sure that at least our voices are being heard or concerns are being raised, so that we don't have to come 3, 4, 5 years later and say, oh my gosh, what's been happening? Because obviously I would have to say, we are voting you into, well, we don't have a lot of say in it as a citizen, but you're put in this position as a board for us to trust that you're doing the right thing, literally with our money. I bought a home just 3 years ago, to be exact, and the price of that home has just gone through the roof, and we haven't done a thing to it. We haven't made any upgrades to it because I can't right now financially, and it just seems as though it's just gone crazy. My lot, I have 3 extra lots. They went from $3,000 to $14,000 a lot in a year, and I'm going, wow. I mean, that's just a lot. And I at least just want to make my voice known as a concerned citizen. I'd like to be active so that I don't have to come back 3 or 4 years and say, what in the world happened back then? I'm really hoping and trusting that you guys are doing the right thing, that there's not money floating around out there that we can't come to grips with. And then lastly, I understand why are we making a statement now, and I'll close very quickly, but I would like to add to that it seems as though it's a little bit of pulling teeth to get information from you. We have to go and do public information requests in order to get the information, and hopefully that's going to change, so that in the future we have a situation where we have the information we're looking for. So that was it. I started with the employees. Did they pay a portion for that money? Just a question I have with that. I just didn't get answered from what I heard Tuesday night. Thank you.
Sir, we have a sign-up sheet if you'd like to speak. Okay. Monica,
I'm good,
would
thank
like
you.
to speak?
No, thank you.
Okay,
I'm observing.
all right. All right, we'll move on to action items, the general action items. We have no consent, so we'll move on to number 1, action regarding approval of the Board of Directors meetings from December 12, 2024 meeting. Take a motion.
I'll make a motion to approve the minutes as presented.
I got a motion by Rick to approve the December 12, 2024 meetings as presented. Do I have a second? Mark has the second. Any discussion? No discussion. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All opposed say nay. No nays. Motion passes. Item number 2, discuss and consider taking action to review, amend, as necessary, and approve the district's investment policy. I'll turn this over to Jeff.
Thanks, sir. It's on your green tab in your book. Texas Government Code Chapter 2256 requires all governmental entities that invest public funds to have an investment plan, an investment policy. That act goes on to say that the appraisal district and the governing bodies of other entities, that they must review and consider making changes if necessary to this investment policy annually. So this is typically I won't always bring all the policies every year to be reviewed, but this is one that we do need to look at, review, and adopt. And I'm bringing it to you tonight with no changes recommended. Our investments are pretty simple. And that is pretty much, we don't have a lot of money that we sit on like a school district that would go put it into a risk pool or put it into CDs or something like that. So most of our money is in very safe money market accounts with the bank. So that qualifies, for the investment policy. The main thing is if you want to go back and study this, there was a county out of California that some CFO got the bright idea that they ought to invest this money in the stock market. And they did. And they lost a ton of money. And states all across the United States come back and said, no, we need to have a public funds investment act to where public money is not put in high risk situations. So the most risk we would ever take is putting it in a CD, term maybe a little, but then again, we don't have lots of money sitting around that I can tie up in a CD for 6 months or a year. So ours is in very safe money market accounts. But we do have to have a policy.
So Jeff, when it says all funds of Hood Central Appraisal District, what funds are they specifically talking about that we're going to be investing?
This would be the monies that are brought in and under our operating account. The allocation that all the taxing entities pay to us on a quarterly basis, it would be that money. It would also include any monies that we would hold in committed funds or reserve accounts. The board at the last meeting adopted I think it was 8%, almost a 1% reserve fund that we need to have. So that kind of money is the type of money that we would be investing. All the monies that and I want to be clear about this, all the monies that we take in from a tax collection standpoint, it comes in, goes into our bank account, and turn around and goes out very quickly, maybe within a week or less, during our heavy collection times. When we get into the off season where collections aren't coming in as often, we have a little bit longer holding period because we have to issue refunds on homestead exemptions and litigation and things like that. And so we need some money setting aside to do those. But again, those are two separate bank accounts, two separate funds, but they're if you want to call it invested, they're invested in money market accounts at the bank. Does that answer your question, sir?
Yeah. Okay. Any other questions?
I'll make a motion that the investment policy of the appraisal district, that we renew it for the year of 2025.
All right. I got a motion by Rick. I got a second by Scott. Any discussion? All right. All in favor say aye. Aye. All opposed say nay. No nays. Motion passes. Moving on to number 3, discuss and consider taking appropriate action on line item transfers within the 2024 budget. Jeff?
Yes, thank you. These are our annual line item transfers within our budget. I've given you a list of recommended changes that we make. Basically, if we go over budget in a particular line item, we can move money from a different line item to kind of cover that. If you watch the county, they pretty much do this at every single meeting that they meet on the Commissioner's Court. We tend to not have very many and not have the need for it, so we kind of do it at the end of the year this time, or just at the beginning of the year. Meg's in the process right now of kind of closing our 2024 books, and this is kind of one of the last things we do to close out those books. So that we're just asking the board to just authorize these line item transfers to not correct, it's not the right word, but just to adjust our 2024 budget. I will point out that this has not increased our 2024 budget at all. We have the exact same budget. It's just moving some money that was unspent out of salaries to cover some of these other issues that we were, over a little bit in.
Okay. You have your largest variance there, postage.
Yes.
On the sales.
Yes.
Have you seen a drastic increase in that?
Not in this. This resulted in a situation in which our software provider, Southwest Data, on some of the accounts we have, we can do one mailing, putting a bunch of tax bills into one envelope.
Right.
They put individual tax bills into individual envelopes, which increased the amount of postage that we wind up sending out.
Gotcha.
It's kind of a issue on their side, but that's all this really boils down to. We didn't see the postage increase. That won't come until this year, right?
Correct.
Okay. So that's, the postage increase is not a result of this. This is primarily a result of Southwest Data printing individual tax bills and putting, if you have 20 warehouses, you got 20 pieces of mail instead of one bill with 20 bills inside that. They won't be doing that again.
Okay.
Anymore.
Rod brought up, that was gonna be my question, is did we adjust to
Yeah, we've had a nice,
compensate for that? For
we've had a nice
2025?
talk with them that, we do not want that to happen going forward. So I think they had some new people that they hired over at the company, and that's where it kind of resulted in. They put individual tax bills in individual envelopes and stuck a stamp on it.
Okay. All right, I'll take a motion from the floor.
I gotta figure out how to say it. So,
I wrote it down there as a staff
I know.
recommendation.
we authorize, so I move that we authorize the chief appraiser to transfer funds from one line item to the budget as presented.
Okay. I got a motion, do I have a second?
I'll second.
Okay. I got a motion by Scott, I got a second by Rick. Any further discussion? All right, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All opposed say nay. No nays, motion passes.
Can you clarify who the second was?
Scott and Rick.
Okay.
Scott made the motion, Rick made the second.
Thank you.
All right, we'll move on to item 4, discuss and consider taking action to waive the penalty and interest of a delinquent entity quarterly allocations payment. Jeff?
Yes, thank you. All of our taxing entities contribute an allocated portion of our budget, and most of them pay on a quarterly basis. Glen Rose ISD, we did not receive their first quarterly payment for 2025. It was due on December the 31st, but we didn't receive it until January the 18th. Meg had notified them that we haven't received your payment yet. She also sent them a letter with the allocation, actually all the entity allocations in November of 2024. But we didn't get their payment until the 18th. Now, state law says that a penalty of 5% and an interest of 10% shall be applied on all delinquent bills. But the law goes on to say that the Appraisal District Board of Directors has the right to waive that if they choose to. Now, when we got it, Meg made multiple attempts to call them, to email them, and quite frankly, we had a lot of trouble. She never did talk to anybody. No. Pardon me. We did send an email around January the 13th. It was a Friday, I think. We went on the weekend. We were off, and then we received the bill on the 18th. The check had been written for the 17th, but when we got the information, there was a stamp kind of as a receive date of January the 13th on the letter that we had sent. So we haven't talked to anybody, but we kind of surmised that they may have gotten the bill information in November. It might have got stuck or lost on someone's desk, and then when she made an attempt to reach out to them, they found it, they stamped it, received January 13th, and then we got a check within 5 days of that. So this is really a procedural issue for the board to consider. You have the right to, one, assess the 5% penalty and the 10% interest, and the payment amount was $2,300. So the penalty and interest would probably be it'd be about $300. You have a right to waive the penalty and interest, which would allow them to forego that altogether, or you can table this agenda item and go back to them and give them, well, at that particular time, when I wrote this up, I said, give them more time to pay, but when we did all this and we sent that out, they paid. So you could table and think about it, but, so it would either be waive the penalty and interest, assess the penalty and interest, or table it for an unknown reason.
So they've been paying for years.
Oh, yes,
This
yes.
is the first time it's happened.
To my knowledge, it is. I mean,
Yes, sir.
I'll let Meg speak to that.
Okay.
But this is also why we put in the reserve policy, so if somebody, yeah,
Yes.
they're a small fish,
Yes.
but if somebody else were to be late, we've got reserves in
Yes.
the bank.
Mhm.
Okay.
That's precisely why that's recommended.
Good point.
Yeah.
If you recall, last year, around the fourth quarter payment, the county was late.
Yeah.
And, that was actually going to be about a $30,000 penalty in interest, and,
What occurred that time, Joe?
well, the board initially, decided not to waive the penalty and interest, but then, there was a request by the county auditor to speak to the board. And she came and she spoke to the board, and the board changed their mind and did decide to waive the penalty and interest on that particular payment.
Okay, so the board has waived the penalties
Yes.
before. Okay.
Yeah, I've done it before.
Does this happen often? Last 5
Uh,
years? Well, you've
not
been
very-
here,
Yeah,
you've been here a year and 4 months or so.
well, again, I'll defer to Meg on it, because she's been receiving these payments.
It's very rare.
I will tell you, when I was at TAD, Fort Worth ISD did this once, and they were late almost 2 months. We actually had to go down to their offices and get a meeting and say, when are you going to make, and their quarterly payment was in the $400,000 range. And my board at that time, they did choose to waive the penalty, but they were just in a weird financial place, and they just didn't pay it for 2 months. They ultimately did, but again, in my 15 years of working at TAD, that only happened like probably 2 times in the whole 15 years, so it's a fairly rare occurrence.
But it's very common for the penalty to be waived in those occurrences.
It is. I mean,
Okay.
I've seen it waived almost every time, but
Okay, that was gonna be waived more than charged.
you do, if you don't take action like we're doing tonight, it's to be charged.
Right.
But I'm presenting it to you guys tonight to decide, do you wanna charge it, or do you wanna waive it?
I mean, I think, you know, if you're a good paying citizen and you talk to a company and that company recognizes your history of payment has been good, most companies will waive the late fee of your other payment that you made or hadn't paid. So, I mean, this is the first occurrence that I've heard since I've been on this board of Glen Rose being late at all, and it's a surprise, so.
Okay.
And again, like I said, the way the paperwork was, it almost looked like it probably got stuck on someone's desk and didn't get opened, and then when we made
Then they
contact.
had Christmas and New Year's
Yeah,
break.
and then it was
they were
stamped
gone for 2 weeks,
received,
yeah.
and, so, I don't think there was a purpose behind being late, in my opinion, but.
So I'll make the motion that we waive the penalty and interest. This would allow the district to forego the penalty and interest due to the circumstances. Okay, got a motion, made the motion, I got a second by Mark. Any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All that opposed, say nay. No nays, motion passes. All right, we'll move to line item number 5, discuss and consider taking appropriate action to create a committed fund for the purpose of funding the upcoming forensic audit and commit the 2024 contingency funds for this purpose. Jeff?
Yes, thank you. In preparation for the next action item of discussing and possibly taking action on selecting an accounting firm to do a forensic audit, I put this on the agenda for the board to consider how we're going to fund and pay for that audit. Now, I'm going to present 2 ideas to the board tonight for you guys to consider. The first idea is what I have here, and that is to create a committed fund for the forensic audit portion, and then to take we had in our 2024 budget a contingency line item of $100,000. The purpose of that was for the litigation that we had ongoing from 2023 and 2024. we were actually able to work through a very, very large majority of our litigation without having to go to court. So we wound up not having to spend those funds. Kind of as Mr. Simmons was saying earlier, we took an approach of how can we resolve these, how can we take care of them, and feel like that we were getting the correct value. So we have unspent monies in that particular line item. So we could commit those monies in a fund. The other scenario that I'd like to throw out is that we could not commit any of those monies from 2024 into anything. Those monies would be refunded back to the taxing entities, and then we could come back and we could amend the 2025 budget for whatever the cost of the forensic audit is going to be, and just bill the taxing entities at that time for that amended budget. Now, if we give all this money back to the entities, in essence, they don't go spend it, then they would have the money to turn around and give it back to us if we do the budget amendment. So there's two ways to look at it. This would be a 2025 expenditure. So you could say, well, we're going to amend the 25 budget to cover that expenditure. Or you could say, we're going to hold on to funds from 2024 and use them for 2025. And there's obviously been a lot of controversy about us holding on to money. Some people believe that it's not right for us to hold on to money. I've had some lawyers say it's perfectly legal to commit funds. I've had auditors tell me it's perfectly fine to commit funds, but it has been an issue in this appraisal district in this county. So I want you to consider both. I don't know what the forensic audit is going to totally cost. We will, once we offer a contract to one of these accounting firms, and once we nail down exactly what our scope of work is going to be, then the auditing firm can let us know how many hours they think it's going to take, and can give us a more accurate assessment of what the cost is going to be. So I pose that out there to you guys. Do you want to commit funds that we currently have from 24 to use in 25? Or you just want to say, nope, we're going to go through the regular course of what the law says. Any excess proceeds, we'll just give it all back to the entities. And then when time comes, we'll amend the 2025 budget and say, hey, we need an extra X number of dollars to pay for this. Keeping in mind,
second option, let's say we amend the budget, we send, because we're adding additional funding for the forensic audit, and then you mentioned that if one entity doesn't wanna pay it, I mean, we're asking for an amendment, we're asking for the approval of the amended budget, am I correct?
That is correct.
So what, and you have to have a majority,
What's the
you
vote
have to,
ratio?
what's the ratio on that? Is it the majority or,
Yeah, so it's 75%.
75% of the entities that
So
say,
if there were enough entities that passed a resolution disapproving,
Let's clear up one thing.
Sure thing.
If we were to amend the 2025 budget,
Right.
say, let's add $100,000.
That's my question.
Yeah, if we were to amend it, this board is autonomous. This board amends the 2025 budget, and we send the budget to the tax committee and say, here's our amended budget. We're not asking for their approval at that time. The only action that the board could take under 6.10, I believe, is they could disapprove that amendment. And that's where it takes 75% of the tax entities filing resolutions to disapprove.
okay,
So if the board wants to amend the budget, we can. Then we send it to them, and they have the option to disapprove, not take action to approve.
okay, gotcha.
I think you have the numbers switched with the 25% cast and downvoted instead of 75%, but I'll look into that.
Yeah.
This hasn't occurred in a while, but it has happened where it's been downvoted. But I believe it's 25% of entities can downvote it, not 75%.
We'll double check.
Sure.
Can you get the tax code 6.10 for him? And we can answer that question before anyone leaves tonight.
Cause that's my question, is if we amend 25 and,
Commit the fund.
well,
Or
no,
no,
if we
that's-
amend 25
And send it out.
and send it out and 50% of the entities come back and say no,
Well, then you don't.
then we're not doing it.
Well, if we've already authorized the contract, I mean, that's the thing, is that when this board says, we're gonna contract with this accounting firm, we're gonna do this, we're not asking for the entity's permission on
Correct.
doing it. I mean, we've done it, we've committed it, we're gonna pay for it. And, yeah, that's what I'm saying, if we choose to just give these committed funds back, or no, I'm sorry, let me say this a bit differently, correctly. If we choose to give these excess proceeds back, we could give them back with a caution to say, hey, you might wanna just hold on to this for a minute, because we may be turning right around and asking for it back in a form of an amended budget.
Okay.
How's the board leaning on this one, option A or option B?
It's a tough spot.
It is, and the thing that the past history has been accused of is holding funds, and I'm a little bit reticent not to refund the money. If we have an overage of $100,000 in the litigation account, then I really think we ought to give it back to them.
I have the same opinion, Rick, is that procedurally, there's this money that should be refunded, and then we need a 25 budget for this, which needs to be sent to the tax units. That's my opinion.
I would agree. Changing the situation a little bit. If for some reason the district was over budget by $100,000, how would it be funded then?
We would, instead of coming to you with line item transfers, I would come to you with a budget amendment, saying we need to raise our budget by $100,000. And then we would send that out to the entities, and we would ask them to pay us an additional $100,000 allocated based upon the ratio to the different entities.
Let me read you the language. It is just a simple majority would have to file a resolution disapproving. So however many entities you have,
I think it would be, we have 11.
6 would be required to file resolutions disapproving pursuant to section 6.10.
So it's a majority.
So my opinion is that we do the two steps. We provide or we give all the entities the excess funds. And at that point, I think that clears us of any withholding, all right? And then we amend the budget for 2025.
Yes.
Adding the additional funds, whatever that may be. It could be $50,000 or it could be $150,000. But at that point, we're gonna be amending that budget for that amount to cover that forensic audit. The forensic audit cost is gonna be contingent on the firm that we pick and on the scope of work that we actually submit for that to be done.
So if that's the board's desire, I would recommend then you just take no action on this action item. Because this action item would be specifically to create a committed fund and then fund it by committing those funds. So what, if you all wanna do the amendment process, then you would just take no action on this item.
And the funds are automatically going.
And the funds will automatically, once,
Is the $100,000 in the litigation fund an automatic, or do we have to? do
no,
something?
it's, what, at the end of the year, it's really after the audit is complete, our financial audit is complete, and the auditor say, this is how much you have in excess proceeds.
Yeah.
Then we'll come back to the board and say, okay, we make a recommendation that you refund, $212,000.
Yeah.
Because we'll figure out how much that 8% fund balance should be, and we'll make sure that's funded.
Okay.
And then anything left over, all goes back to the entities automatically.
And we picked a name for that fund, that 8% fund. What are you calling it?
I think they're gonna call, the auditors are gonna name it, but I think it's just gonna be a reserve fund balance, probably undesignated reserve fund balance.
Good.
Because it's not specifically designated for anything except just reserves or contingencies or something like that, but I'm gonna let the auditors name
Okay.
it.
Just let me know when you have a firm name for that and we'll put it in.
Okay.
So Jeff, do we actually say, or make a motion that we take no action on this item?
You need to, but you have not made that motion yet.
I'll make a motion that we take no action on this item.
All right, I got a motion by Rick,
Second.
I got a second, by Rod. Any further discussion? All right, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed say nay. No nays, motion passes 5-0. All right, we move on to the next line item, is discuss and consider taking action, appropriate action related to the request for qualifications for the forensic audit services prepared by the district, which may include selection of an auditing firm or rejecting all proposals and resubmitting a new RFQ. Correct me if I'm wrong, all, the two RFQs have been sent out, to the board members for review. Y'all had time to go through this.
Sales pitch, you haven't
Yeah,
anything
right.
substantive to go on as far as making a decision or recommendation.
Well, let me clarify a little bit. What we're doing is we're basically looking for professional services. We're not looking for goods, we're not buying computers or copiers or anything like that. So in a situation scenario like this, you could do a request for proposal, which would be, give us your best price on 10 copiers. And in this, we're saying, we want to request, you give us your qualifications. We're not asking for a price yet, we're just trying to select an auditing firm that has the qualifications that you all feel would work in performing the forensic audit that you want done. And so that's what we did, and I think it was our September board meeting, I was instructed by the board to start the RFQ process, and we did that, we submitted them a couple of months ago. When we did that, we posted it on our website, and I sent the RFQ, I sent an email to about 5 different accounting firms to say, hey, we're looking for this. Now, I purposely didn't send it to any accounting firms in Hood County, because I felt like it needs to be an outside third party, somebody that doesn't need the paper and things of that nature. I purposely did not send it to our previous accounting firm, and I purposely didn't send it to our current accounting firm. But I did send it out to several. We had 2 that responded saying that they were interested. I had 1 that responded saying that they were going to decline to do anything, and then the other 2 didn't respond at all to us. So we have 2 responses to the RFQ. The process as I see it, and I believe I've said it before to the board, is that your job now would be one of 3 things. 1, you could select one of these firms, okay? The second option you have is you have it, and we put this in the RFQ, you have the right to reject all the proposals, go back and start over with a different RFQ and try to get more submissions. You could do that. Or you could table this item tonight and then either seek legal counsel, you could maybe ask more questions or whatever, gain more information, and then bring this back up at a different one. So I am not making a recommendation to the board as far as what you should do as far as which one of these firms you should select. Just laying out what your options are, in my opinion, tonight. So I've read the I've read the RFQs, I think probably both firms are qualified to do this. I think the one of them was like out of San Antonio, and one of them I think was out of Boston. So,
Thanks, Jeff.
I have not made these RFQs public at this particular time because typically in this type of process, until the contract has been awarded and the negotiations have taken place, it's best to kind of keep this part of it confidential until, and once the contract is let and all that, then everything can be made public. I think even the contract can be made public unless, with the Public Information Act, it's a situation which if somebody wants information and something is suspected to be confidential, we generally have to ask the Texas Attorney General, say, can we release this or not? And then they make that decision, so.
Did anybody have any strong feelings about whether or not one was not qualified?
No, I mean, they're obviously, presented lots of qualified people and good credentials, good references as far as what they've done. Jeff, and I've been around these things a lot. To me, it really boils down to who do you get? Because I guarantee everybody puts their best resumes in front of everybody. And also in this business, and I know it very well, is that you see these layers, but they'll be the senior partner will just charge some hours to your account. And that's to be expected. My point being is that who do you get, and do you have confidence in that person's abilities?
Well, I don't personally know, any of the CPAs that are in the.
The Forbes one's a little heavier in CPAs, the Weaver one's a little heavier. CPAs who are also CFEs, the Weaver one's a little heavier with just CFEs. And the way they drew the org chart, the guy at the very bottom, who might be the person with all the work, is a CPA out of Texas A&M, but he, I think he has like 5 years experience or something. So you might say, well, has he really seen and, everything?
Yeah, and I can't really speak to that. I don't know either one of them. The one thing I noticed was that the Weaver submission appeared to have done some of these forensic audits for other appraisal districts. That was the one thing that kind of did stand out to me, whereas
Citations are good.
where the Forbes one, they had done forensic audits, but I didn't see anywhere that they had ever dove into an appraisal district environment and did work for it. So,
It appeared to me that the Weaver was a lot more, their business was with public entities, and they had some everything from ISDs to cities to others, and but it was heavily in the public sector rather than business.
yeah, and again, both of these firms are not located in North Texas. I think one of them's out of San Antonio, one of them's out of Austin, so.
The Weaver says Dallas.
Do they?
Dallas address on it.
Yeah, Dallas address.
The other one had a San Antonio phone number. I didn't pay
Yeah.
attention.
That's what I saw.
They said where they.
Actually, they both have Dallas addresses.
Just have a branch office.
I agree with some of what I'm hearing right now is that I was impressed with the Weaver, just for the same reason that Rick was, is because you look at some of their previous investigations, they had an undisclosed appraisal district, and then they had some cities. But also when you were talking about the organizational chart, what you see on the right is subject matter resources. So you had a person that was a governmental investigator, and you also had internal controls / government. So obviously they understand the government aspects and the policies that we should be following, that they need to be investigating.
That's a good point, Eddie.
You also have, I'm sure with anybody who works underneath you, you're always gonna check their work. So it's great to have, senior forensics and litigation experts that are gonna be overseeing that as well. And those are just my observations.
customary to, select one and request price, or two and select price?
So Mark, what, we have the option right now, we can select one of these two, or we could just say, you know what? We want to see if we can go back out and get some more.
Well, I think another thing you could do, it's kind of like hiring an attorney. The way I kind of equate it to is like, you know, you wanna hire an attorney that has expertise in a particular area. Maybe I got an HR issue. I don't wanna hire a personal injury lawyer to handle an HR issue, so I might try to talk with the attorney and say, okay, now what kind of price can you give me? But I think what you could do is you could select one of them, bring them in, start negotiations, and if you come back like, oh my gosh, we can't afford you, or that's, you possibly could back out of that. But Jim, by selecting them tonight, you're really just saying, we wanna authorize Chief Appraiser to engage them to come in and sit down to the table and start talking about what the scope of work, what the price is gonna be.
You could proceed and say, you know, I'd like to define a scope of work, I'd like to know who I get in expected hours, and I'd like to know the price.
Yeah, and I think that firm will tell us that information at that time, and if the board says, hey, that's where we were thinking, you move forward, sign a contract, or you back up and say, let's go talk to the other one and see what their price point is.
So to your point, Jeff, the staff recommendation was to choose a firm or choose both firms.
Or, no, actually, it was to choose a firm, to reject both firms and go back out and start all over, or it was to table this tonight, and if you felt like you needed more legal advice, or if you wanted to ask certain questions, and then bring it back up at another meeting. Quite frankly, I kinda hope you guys pick a firm and let's move forward.
I'm in that camp too.
Yeah, and that's gonna be my question. If we were to choose a firm, would we be able to talk to Braden next month about, you know, as you're getting information back?
Oh, I think absolutely, yeah.
You're authorizing the negotiations to begin on entering into a contract with one of these two firms. You're saying we will select further investigation and contracting with this possible firm. There's no cash outlay.
Okay.
No monetary bill yet. Of course, Jeff is would be authorized if you pick a firm, if they have some remedial costs to get them in here or whatever, which usually they don't, within reason. But
Okay.
there'll be certainly more discussion. Jeff's not gonna authorize.
Well, then there will be more, but I just wanna make sure. Okay, excellent.
And we will be constantly advising during the process as well, just to Jeff.
Yeah.
Who can communicate anything to each of you individually.
Yeah.
And how the process is working, just not in a quorum, and then if you have any questions individually, you can always reach out to us as well.
Okay.
Doesn't have to be here, but that's usually how it works, just for.
Perfect.
Any further questions or discussion?
All right, I make a proposal that we select the Weaver firm to pursue the internal, forensic audit.
Okay. And, can you amend your, motion to authorize the chief appraiser to schedule future meetings to begin a contract negotiation process?
Yes, authorize the,
You can just read it right there. It's no.
I'm sorry, authorize the chief appraiser, to schedule future meetings to begin the contract negotiation process.
Okay, I got the motion from Mark. Do I have a second?
Second.
Okay.
With the Weaver Group.
With the Weaver.
Yeah.
Okay, yes, correct.
You got that? Okay. And I got Scott as a second. Any further discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed say nay. I hear no nays. Motion passes 5-0. All right, we'll move on to line item number 6, information items, report from the chief appraiser.
Yeah, I'll be quick, we can get out of here tonight. We have been working on our 2025 appraisal activities. I've been kind of preaching the same song, second verse now. Staff's been out in the field, picking up and measuring a bunch of houses. We're kind of seeing a rather robust, strong, real estate market right now. We do some preliminary looks at what our values are compared to what the sales prices are coming in. We're gonna have to look in 2025 what we're gonna have to do as far as appraisal values. There's a possibility that the appraised values can go up some, should go up some, both in commercial and in residential, but we'll work on those on kind of a neighborhood by neighborhood basis. We'll base our analysis on a neighborhood by neighborhood basis, where you can have some neighborhoods that go up, some neighborhoods maybe that don't. but we are still seeing, a rather strong, real estate market. So that's what we're working on right now. As Mr. Simmons did say, one of the things that I've been trying to do is change culture a little bit within our walls, improve our customer service, and with the addition of Eric and his experience and knowledge in dealing with tax agents and things of that nature, we're gonna work really strong to work with and settle as much as we can with these individual agents, so we have as few a protest as possible, and try to get through the process rather quickly, and get on to the certification phase of all this. Our collection activities, as of the end of January of 2024, we were about 83% collected, and money will come in, collections will come in this last week. There are many people who wait until January the 31st to pay their taxes, which is the day before the delinquency. If any of you are one of those people, I won't say shame on you, but don't expect your payment to be processed on the 31st, because we'll get a lot during that time. So I think we're kind of right in line with our collections, and again, I said it once before and I'll say it again, when that money comes into us, there's been some thoughts and ideas that when that money comes in there, the appraisal district uses that money for other things like litigation, buying paper and stuff, and that's not true. We have two bank accounts, we have two funds. One is the operating account, which is what the taxing entities fund. The other is the tax collections, which are what we all pay our property taxes, and that money turns right around and goes back straight out to the entities. That money's never touched. One of the thoughts would be is that in some of this forensic audit that we might put in the scope of work, have them also look at both accounts. So to ensure that the monies that have come into this account all went right back out like they were supposed to, and they weren't used for any kind of services or any kind of crossover between those two funds. So that will be a topic for a different time. I've been doing some public speaking here lately, trying to get out in the community. Been to a couple of different realtor groups. I sent Eric out to two groups you've spoken to?
Went with you on one, and then did one
Okay.
by myself.
So I've been sending him out. We get contacted periodically from realtor groups, want to know, a lot of times they want to know about homestead exemptions. What's the benefit? How do you get them? So on and so forth. I actually got to go to the Granbury Association of Realtors for the commercial realtors, and had a really good conversation about agricultural designations and about builder's inventory and the development. Had a really good talk with them. But we always welcome the opportunity to go out and speak publicly to different groups to try to explain the property tax system. We've been doing this same type of property tax system for over 40 years, and it's kind of surprising that there's still a lot of people that have some values have been increasing a lot, not just in Hood County, all across Texas, honestly, quite frankly, all across the United States. But we're working to try to educate people. We do want to be transparent. We want to put, get information into people's hands, how it works and so on and so forth. So doing that through public speaking, it touches a small group, but I'm hoping that through the realtors, every time I go to speak to them, I'm like, look, when we share this information about homesteads, turn around and share it to all your clients. Title companies would be another group that would be good, because those closings happen to title companies, and they can tell people, don't forget to apply for this, don't forget to apply for this. And it's a good service, a way that we can kind of do some outreach, because not everybody's gonna go to our website, that type of thing. So we're doing that as well. So I'll hush up and let you continue. I'll answer any questions that you have.
I got a question. Training, how's that been going with the district employees? Yeah.
I think it's been going really well. This last year, I taught four different classes.
Well, one was in 23, so you taught
Okay.
3 and 24.
Okay, I teach a lot of appraisal classes. So not only am I teaching the staff, and we're saving quite a bit of money on training and education, but when we have two introductory classes, introduction to property taxes and introduction to appraisal. On those classes, I bring in almost all the staff so that we can talk about that. But another thing we've been doing, and since I have Eric here, we've been also trying to ramp up our individual in-house training with different sectors with regards to appraisal. But we also have regular staff meetings now, to where every other Tuesday, we bring in the management and the staff, and we sit down and we talk about accomplishments that we wanna try to get done that week. And then I encourage all of those people to go out then and share that with staff members so that we're all kind of on the same page. But I also take an approach of what's kind of called management by walking around. You won't see me sitting in my office all day long. I get out and I walk around and I talk to staff, and I think, that actually had been said to me, but I have staff that will actually come in my office and sit down and talk about, hey, what about this, what about this situation? And I get to talk a lot of times one-on-one with staff, which is a change and a departure from what we've had in the past. So staff is very comfortable coming and sitting out in my office and talking about, whatever issues that they want to talk about. So it is a focus. It is a big focus.
Last question for me is, how's the attendance for the monthly meetings for the tax entities?
Not good.
Okay.
I've been for over a year now having a monthly taxing unit meeting, which is basically I invite members of our taxing units. A lot of times my comments are geared towards the finance folks, the CFOs. I have excellent response from the city of Granbury. Ava shows up at every one of our meetings. Chris was showing up at a lot of them, but Ava's the one that I really want to talk to and really want to target, because we talk about trends, we talk about where our values go, we talk about different issues that really could possibly impact the finances of a district. We get pretty good attendance from Granbury ISD, but we haven't had, I think I've had one person from the county show up in the 12 months or more. I had Toller ISD show up once. Never had anybody from Lytham. City, county, school. Most of the time I have 2 to 3 people at the meetings, but we've actually now are talking about going to a quarterly meeting, to where we'll sit down once a month, except for during the months of our certification. And I'm required by law to send out an estimate in April to the entity, so we'll have that most likely at a quarterly meeting in April, but then I probably will have a follow-up meeting, say in June and July, because July is our certification, so that I can give them up-to-date information on what values are doing. But no, the taxing entities, they haven't really, a few of them attended, not all of them.
Okay.
And Meg sends out an email every month saying, hey, we do it on a pretty good schedule, so everybody can put it on their calendars if they chose to. But she always sends a reminder saying, hey, we're having a taxing meeting, and we send it out to all the entities. But
Well, thank you.
my main thing is that I want to make it available, because one of the things that I heard when I came here is communication is bad. Communication with the entities, communications with the public's bad. We've been trying to change that. We've enhanced our website. We've got more information on our website probably ever had, more useful information on our website than we've ever had. And then again, me trying to communicate on a monthly basis directly with the taxing unit partners that we have, the stakeholders that I would refer to them. And that's like I said, Granbury City and Granbury School has been pretty good, pretty regular in their attendance.
Any other board member has?
One question, staffing wise, we've had one retirement, is that correct?
Yes.
And anything else new?
No, we've, obviously I brought in Eric as the deputy. He's been doing excellent. I heard a comment from one of our employees, might have been today, that morale's probably is the best it's ever been in a long, long time.
Perfect. Good.
So, I thought that was a good positive feedback to get. We had one retirement that happened at kind of the beginning of January. We also had, in 2024, we had 2 appraisers that terminated their employment, and then we had 1 clerk that terminated her employment. But we have now rehired all 3 of those positions, but I have not yet replaced the retirement position yet.
Thank you.
The retired position, yeah, maybe that's what I should say.
Any other board members? All right. All right, we'll move on to line item number 7. I now declare that the Hood Central Appraisal Board of Directors is convened into open session and that all members are present The Board of Directors will go into closed session pursuant to the provision of Texas Government Code in accordance with the authority contained in the following section. 551.074 to deliberate on and evaluate the job performance of the Chief Appraiser.